Good afternoon, Lee.
Good afternoon, Dan.
Straight in, yeah. This is what we do.
We are here again.
We are here again.
In your green jumper.
Yes, my golfing jumper. We got an episode today where we're actually going to talk about operations of an academy trust. So, we've not done this one before. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you. Thanks
Hello,
for
Kim.
having me. Thank you.
Thanks for coming down. Bit of a travel this morning or this afternoon. How long?
About an hour and a half.
That's all right.
Yeah.
It's
a lovely drive on today when the weather's like today.
The sun. We had a guest from Midlands, didn't we, the other day, who came all the way up on train, so we know people are travelling.
Further, actually, yeah.
Thanks for joining us. So we're just going to jump straight in. Talk to us about introduction of who you are, what you do, and a little bit of a backstory about how you got to where you are.
Gosh, where to start? I suppose for me, currently Director of Operations for a North East Multi-Academy Trust, looking after both primary and secondary schools. We've currently got 22 schools, but I've no doubt we'll stand still there and continue to grow. I suppose for me, my journey into education wasn't necessarily kind of linear. A few pit stops along the way. I suppose going back to my own educational career, I kind of hoped I would always end up in education. I wanted to be a teacher. And it just, I don't know, sometimes it doesn't work out that way. And you didn't, end up going to university, and I suppose you take a different path. So I kind of had a few stops along the way and ended up, I suppose, starting working with children. My time with children started working for the local authority in social care and supporting residential children's homes across the County Durham provision, and the secure facility that's in County Durham. And that, I suppose, gave me an insight to understand an aspect of social care that I'd never seen before. It gave me an insight to the challenges that the young people face and the amazing job that people do to look after them in those very challenging circumstances. And then from there, kind of started in business operations in schools, in mainstream, and travelled throughout faith schools, multi-academy trusts, both Catholic and C of E, and kind of made my way where I am.
There you are. Do you know what? No one's come on here, have they, and taken a linear path into their position.
No, it's very much.
Even the CEOs have had this kind of like wavy route all the way, which is. But it sounds like you've been driven again. It's the common theme with schools, by the purpose. Yeah, that's why you're there now. It's the purpose, isn't it? Looking after the kids, looking after making sure that you leave, a legacy almost, and you're part on their life.
Quite an interesting path, though, coming from quite a different, not necessarily straight into a teaching or an educational facility, but again, that sort of care and nurturing essence with the local authority, was that?
Local authority, and I suppose when I came into education, it gave me, I suppose, a more solid understanding of those most disadvantaged children and what, I suppose, a day in the life in them coming to school and what they might be dealing with outside. There's lots of services and agencies involved in those young people's lives. And education is a part of it, and a significant part, but it gave me a totally different perspective to understand that in much more detail. So I feel very lucky to kind of have that understanding. So
I think that's it's a huge part in that process, isn't it? I must admit, I've probably been quite sheltered in my youth and upbringing to those sort of circumstances, and learning how to manage and deal with those was to have been a privilege, but also quite a challenge at times. So getting into education as well, that must have helped to, like I say, appreciate those needs or additional needs that I needed to do it.
100%. I look back all the time at now, looking back at school, and you think everyone's equal, which we are in that sense, but actually you're seeing it from the reality, and you're seeing kids that neglect, you're seeing all this, and having that is huge, because it brings so much value into the school to look out for maybe signs and things. So just talk to us then about so that's what you came in to do, but you fell into estates then. Was that you obviously estates was what you started to move in to do more of?
Yeah, as I kind of moved into the position of, I suppose, a typical school business leader that you might see in many multi-academy trusts or schools up and down the country, looking after several different aspects of school operational life. You know, it's finance, it's HR, it's estates, and I suppose the position I applied for was more estates focused, and it gave me a totally different perspective on being able to really focus in and drive one particular aspect with kind of an expertise level versus trying to kind of spin everything and not do it as well as I feel like I would like to. And it provided me with that opportunity, which is valuable, really valuable.
What was that first few weeks like in the nitty gritty of it? What, trying to sort of adapt? Was it a sharp finding your feet, or was it quite were you nurtured in that role, or what was the sort of expectation? I guess
I think I'm very fortunate. The organisation that I work for is very nurturing, very supportive, and in all different aspects, whether that's training, development or otherwise, I think. So I do feel very fortunate that's the company that I work for. But it has been a learning curve, more so because of the exponential growth I think we've had as a trust. When I joined, it was 2021 and we had 5 schools, and today we sit at 22. Yeah. And I was one of kind of 2 of us looking after estates at that point, and now we've got a team of 11 looking after kind of estates, catering and health and safety. So it's we've spoke to some estate managers, haven't we? We literally no experience whatsoever, dump straight in and away you go. And it's almost like learning day by day. It's very different because you kind of have a magnifying glass on an aspect of a role that you've done and tried to do kind of lots of different aspects, but now you are looking at this one in really granular detail and trying to get it, I suppose, where it needs to be for a lot of schools, and that's
a very difficult
challenge.
Market. It's a sinking budget and a crumbling estate. Yeah, as the saying goes, it must be very, like you say, trying to be too looking at under the microscope. It must be a very sort of, not shocking. Shocking is probably the wrong word, but it's quite a daunting task to try and do that. It's a challenge, and I suppose for me that's what I relish about it. I love, I suppose, the prospect of leaving something in a better place than where you started. But also, I think when you're driven by the purpose of doing something, I suppose, completely beyond yourself, I think you've got to do it with the fullness of what you can, if that makes sense. Yeah. I think you've got to, do your best, turn up every day, and you're driven by the purpose versus the challenge itself seems too overwhelming.
So you joined at 5 schools when there was 5, and you were challenged with look after these properties. Yeah. The growth from 5 to 22 is obviously, is it 22?
22.
It's a big, and your team only grew by 1. Was that right?
Where there was me and another at that point, and then gradually we've added people skilled with growth, really quite organically, but trying to make sure that we get the right model, making sure that we've got the right support in place for schools, making sure that the staff have got the right support in place, because transitioning, I suppose, to an estates role as part of a multi-academy trust can be different from what they've been used to previously. There's more kind of responsibility and spotlight certainly on the estates teams within schools to kind of step into that role. So they need a lot of support and guidance and kind of nurturing in the right way as well.
I think it comes down to leadership at the top, doesn't it? What they say. I've obviously seen your setup, and you walk in, and I couldn't believe it was a full division of a estate manager. Down the road, you've got one guy looking after 25 schools on his own, and the disconnect is amazing. But you had it all right. And actually, what you find with those that have got 20 odd schools and one person, they almost see him as a caretaker. Just fix the leaks, make sure everything works. Whereas what you have at your end is strategic planning on how to make sure estates, are long lasting, and that can really come, I'm guessing, from the top of what they see the vision. But obviously funds as well. Yeah, we've got lots of issues on falling pupil numbers, and that then affects the funding. Yeah. Just talk to me about that. Pupils not coming through, there isn't enough pupils, we've got birth rate down and all that. It's a great podcast on this, by the way, done by us, or by Matt McDermott, who talks about falling pupil numbers. I didn't even know it was a thing, I learnt something.
It really is.
But then obviously sat within the governance things that I do, I'm understanding the impact it has on the financials. So talk to us about that, and is it a big impact in terms of how much money you get and how's it dished out?
I think ultimately the children that come to each of our schools is one of the primary determinant factors on the budget that you have available, along with lots of other things. We're seeing education budgets, I think, are kind of presented as in, they're being invested in by, I suppose, from the government picture, but what we're seeing in reality doesn't quite reflect that. And I think there's constant compromises that you're making around, developments and improvements, obviously not from a safety perspective, but, you're trying to do the right thing and making choices every day to try and deliver the best you can for everybody.
It's really got in my head this though. If you lose 100 pupils, you're losing a lot of money, a lot. Yeah. So all of a sudden everything drops, which means
you've still got the same size school.
You've still got the same size school. You've still got everything to maintain, and the costs of everything goes up. Yeah. So I don't know how that's been dealt with.
I think certainly from our perspective, we do very detailed financial planning for several years in advance, taking into account. It's integrated curriculum financial planning. We forecast, several years, 5-6 years in advance, looking at the effect of birth rates, plus other factors, inflationary factors and otherwise, and taking all of that into account and trying to deliver a balanced budget at the end of that. But I think the determinant factor, I suppose, from an estate, the school estate never gets smaller. It's the same. So if the pupil numbers reduce and you reduce staffing, or you kind of adjust your approach to delivery of education in whatever way you need to, that's the same, but you've still got to turn the lights on and you've still got to turn the heating on, and all of those other things remain kind of a constant in that. So it is a challenge, especially with an ageing estate. I think there is obviously that as well.
It's just obviously, have you done any work with schools around falling pupil numbers and understanding the budgets that come in and how they can plan ahead? Because from a supplier side, like where I was, you're almost like, you need a new roof, it's £100,000, you need a new roof. But actually...
Do you actually need that building altogether?
Correct.
That's the question,
Just a completely disconnect. But have you spoken to any schools about falling pupil numbers and budgets?
I think it's that forever revolving factor, isn't it? It's like a pupil numbers going up or pupil numbers going down. So it's we do either side of the coin. We look at like sort of post-16 funding and bids for that, because that assessment that they've done, that they're going to increase the intake over the next 3-5 years. It's all estimates, but if they can advance the buildings and reinvest some money to reutilise a building, then of course they're going to do it. But like you say, it's sometimes they are difficult decisions, but some of the older buildings especially, is it better to remove them out of the picture? Because the amount of times we've gone into schools where, we've mothballed that room, or we've mothballed that because there's just it's just surplus to requirements. But we do try to do it and try to invest. But again, it's not in the interest to keep it falling, is it? It's still in the interest of the school to try and change that trend and try and get more. I know you can only control it by birth rates, but it's a skill set in itself, really.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
And again, I suppose you touched on our central team model. We have a marketing team as part of our central team, and obviously one of their primary focus is focus on marketing publicity for each school, trying to gain all of the children that we can, because we believe that's the right thing. You know, every child coming into one of our schools, we believe they're going to get a high quality education, and that's, you know, ultimately what we want.
It's quite competitive, isn't it?
Oh, do you know what? I was just about to say, do you know what, right? There's a full business model here, but they're all, you know, and each pupil's like a sale. Like, bring the sale in because then it can fund the bigger picture. Pupils are not sales, by the way, we all say that. But
I think, and I hate to revert back to football, but it's like that sort of football academy.
100%.
You want to get them into the reserves or the first team, but how good are your facilities? Am I going to go to so-and-so because they've got the facilities?
Yeah.
Or is it just because they've got the best first team, or have they got this? And it must be a really hard balance to sort of say, at the moment, we're not there on the curriculum, or we're not doing those subjects, but we are going to be. We just need to get these rooms sorted out. So it must be a really hard task for marketing. That's something.
Do you know, I think they do a fantastic job, our marketing team. I suppose you walk into any of our schools and you feel the impact that they've had on any of the schools and in and around the community. I think they do an exceptional job at what they do. So, but again, you know, coming back to the facilities and that, I suppose, being a driver, it is, and I suppose one of my primary roles is to make sure they've got the best possible environment to come and learn in above what they may receive somewhere else, so that, you know, they'd make that choice for us.
Yeah. I was just going to say, the estate manager's position, we're going to go on to the operations part of it, but the estates is just such a big play at the moment, obviously with the new Procurement Act coming into play. Estate managers, some of them will never win. They're in a position where they're trying to make the best decision for the schools, but they can be overridden by the trustees who say that isn't going to work, and they're constantly they get bashed because, and some of them need almost to become strategists within the bigger picture and not just an estates team. And it seems like this is where you've got it right. You almost have a voice because there's a lot of you, and that you can actually go in and give real best advice. But if you've got one person looking after 20 schools and go, right, what's their opinion? It's that the trustees goes, no, that's 200 grand we can't afford to spend. It almost
reactive or being proactive.
So these guys need so much more support, whether it's teaming up with other estate managers. I could plug some in here. Teaming up with other estate managers, or supporting each other, or finding best practice. But they need to bring more to the board, in my opinion, than just being, I'm an estates manager and I'll help you. Almost need to sit and go and be strong in their message. I know that's not always possible, but
we've done a lot of building on that. So when you looked at so when you sort of built this team, were you quite engaged with that process? And what was the sort of things? Was there any triggers that you sort of put forward that we needed to have in?
I think heavily involved in the process along the way. I think looking at some of the core elements of delivery, and I suppose where you could deliver the most impact, we started with estates, and then we had a number of schools that had in-house catering, so we brought in a specialist in chef as part of our central team, and he kind of leads that in-house catering much better than I ever could, and he's fantastic and kind of drives that extremely passionately. And then within the central team, we've got 6 estate managers who have an allocation of schools, and then they go in and support the on-site premises teams and cleaning teams and stuff from there. 6
estate managers across 22 schools.
Yes.
See, it's so
strong numbers, isn't it?
It's really strong numbers. But down, in other places, there's one looking after 20.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have to kind of discuss it, but what's happening there then? Why do we have such a difference between two trusts? Without calling, we're not putting you on the spot, Kim. You don't have to call anything out. But why such a difference? Why are you getting it right, and it's not happening elsewhere?
I don't know that there's a one-size-fits-all. I think it works. There's elements that work for everybody in it. For us, what works in particular is that focus that the team are going in and they're looking at the estate and they're making sure that we're compliant and the team are supported and they're delivering training and support and guidance in an estate's capacity. And then we've got other elements and other teams that go in and do that for the other people that are their focus. So HR will go in and speak to the people that primarily deal with HR in the school. So you have a more concentrated level of support and guidance for the people who kind of need to. It just, I suppose for us, we feel like it drives efficiency and that we need all the efficiency that we can get along with quality and compliance.
Did you have quite a strong voice then to kind of build your case here? As in, did you go in and say, this is what we need to...
It was collaborative, right from the beginning, from our CEO and COFO. It's just kind of the way that we've done it and kind of built that model as a team.
The only reason I do ask is we get estate managers watching, and and they'll look at your model and go, there's 6 of them.
Rolls Royce.
20 schools, and over here I've got 29 schools, and I can't even get a new window.
I suppose we're trying to offer the advice on how can you get that support to take that next step? Because, like you say, some might look and say, well, actually, that's quite a big number for the number of schools, and actually, why have they got 6? Why haven't they got 4? Or so there's two sides to every story, really. But you're only measured on your efficiencies and your success, really.
I think some of it for us, we've tailored our approach over the years and started to look at the contextualization of each school. We're not a one-size-fits-all and this is how it's got to be. Obviously, there are elements of that when you come to compliance and procurement and financial efficiency. Obviously, those have parameters that you're working with. But beyond that, it's making sure that the right support is in the right place for the right school and the child at the end of the day. And it isn't necessarily that... each estate's manager would have 3 schools allocated. It may be that they've got 4 or 5, possibly because they're in a stronger position. They've got the experience of staff on site may be different. All of those elements are taken into the consideration and the factor of how we build that up. It's not just... I've woken up this morning and that's kind of how we've done it. There's been a lot of planning that's gone into that.
Yeah, it's... what's the word? It's just naturally progressed, isn't it? And you've got people bolting on and bolting on.
Very, very organic.
Evolved, organic. That's the word I was looking for. Evolved organically.
You've never had nothing organic, have you? Some carrots. I've got a question for you. So, what does your estate look like currently? As in, because what I'm trying to lead on to is historically, the Northeast and other areas have been. Neglected funding wise, I believe. I think from looking at the stats over previous years, what have you got? Some new schools? Are they all sort of post-war or pre-war sort of thing?
Very mixed bag. We've got a very mixed bag. We've got 2 schools who are currently in the DFE school rebuilding programme, or kind of modelled. One is in the DFE programme, the other is funded locally as well. So they're kind of their condition is very different to some of the others, and they're in the programme because their condition needs obviously addressing as part of that. We've got a lot of schools kind of around 1960s. We have got a beautiful school up in Walsingham, which is around 1800s. Very beautiful building. Everybody describes it a little bit Harry Potter when you walk in. It is lovely, but very different. We've got some clasp construction. We've got more modern builds around 2014 as well. So very, very mixed bag. So,
and how do you sort of prioritise that then? How do you sort of appease all parties? Because even the newer schools will probably want, we'll say, the slice of the pie, the funding element, things like that. How would you sort of manage their expectations in your trust?
Certainly from our perspective, it's been a common understanding from the beginning of everybody that joins our trust, really. It's based on need and condition versus somebody who's more confident in asking and because they know particularly about a certain subject within their school. It's not, I know that roof needs doing. It's not. It's based on fact and condition versus request. And I think that helps us keep a balance on the prioritisation, and a lot of that is done from local knowledge and site and how you're managing your assets, but from external condition assessments that we prioritise every couple of years. So all of that feeds into it. But obviously, ultimately, that funding that comes from central government for us, so school condition allocation, that's delivered from the CDC programme, which is a challenge. And I do think there's perhaps room to adjust that programme and perhaps make it a little bit more fit for purpose. I think there's such a lot of value in gaining external insight into the estate and providing kind of a census almost on estates for the government. But I feel like we're doing it twice and perhaps not at a kind of detailed enough level to drive the funding. I feel like if I submitted all of my paid for surveys that I kind of source myself, my level of funding may be different. And, it's just a consideration around how we do things in the future. I think there's definitely room to look at some of those things to be more efficient, and hopefully that will come along.
I suppose that's the age-old argument between being SIF eligible and SCA, is that it's sort of more in your power to, we say, bid for these things. But then again, you're in the bid process, so it's a difficult position to be in either side, isn't it, sort of thing. So
I think there's pros and cons to all of it. I think the ambition and the hope is that you continually improve your estate with the money that you're given. But we're on a life cycle of kind of change, and I get one thing done and then we're kind of coming back round, and you're in that programme again of improvement and things that need doing. So I think, it's, I suppose, thinking nationally about our efficiencies of how we gather that data. I think in particular, I think that's something that we could do.
Yeah. So then obviously that was a lot on estates, but then...
Sorry, yeah.
It's good. This is why things are here. We need to know about this because there's other estate managers that that want to hear about other people's strategies and tactics, and they're reaching out, going, "How is everyone getting it so right, and why am I getting it so wrong?" They're not. They're just all dealing with their own. But it's just nice to hear it from another place. Like, you're really engrossed in it, and you've built a great team, but. Your story goes a little bit further now, because obviously you've just mentioned that you're part of the operations. So the bigger picture, this isn't just about estates now. Is there a lot more elements brought in?
Primarily, I think since I started the organisation, I think you're doing what needs to be done, and I think as part of any organisation, there's lots of people out there that are contributing more broadly. But I suppose Director of Operations for me kind of means that in itself you're doing what needs to be done and supporting the organisation in driving kind of school support teams forward. So primarily my responsibilities lie with estates, sustainability and risk. All of the joyful subjects covered off there, but I have looked after procurement for a time while I've been at my current organisation as well. So.
Yeah. It's a big old job then, isn't it? Operations. I think I tried operations once. For me.
No comment.
I'm not an operations person. No. Too much of a
lover, not a fighter.
I am, absolutely. I'm all about big ideas, creativity. I think operations, you need a very kind of, you need a structured process. I'm terrible for it, but there's a part for us all to play. With all this experience that you've got, you just talk to us a little bit about NESAF then as well, because with everything you've done with the States and operations, you've been able to go into NESAF. Just explain what NESAF is, because we don't like abbreviations on here, because we don't talk about abbreviations. What is it and what's its purpose?
Okay. So NESAF, or the North of England Schools and Academies Forum, is a regional based in the North East forum for school and multi-academy trust leaders. It's to give back to the sector. It's a kind of non-for-profit organisation that essentially bases itself in collaborative work, and how can we share best practice, how can we collaborate and kind of help each other, I suppose, to kind of continue to move forward. I think that's the grounding. It has various different subgroups and a main session, and meets once a term, trying to bring value to I suppose sector-wide topics that are going on. And
your role there?
I'm just been appointed as chair of the estate subgroup.
So I remember going to NESAF. Like I say, I was invited in, and who did it before you? Was it Jim?
Tracy.
Was it Tracy was the chair?
Yes, she was.
Right, okay. Yeah. Right, okay, so Tracy was the chair. Didn't even know that. It's just brilliant. Sorry, Tracy. So I've been up to it. It's a great place, isn't it, just to share best practice. It's between each other. I remember the subgroups. We had a guy who came on and started to talk about IT security. I remember him from this one session. It was quite intense. Scared their living daylights out of everyone if you haven't got your security in place, that people will come and rob you. But we did. It was all like sub little subgroups. It was almost a mini version of Schools North East. In a way, like one setting, one time, come in, subgroup out, back into the room. Thanks for coming. Yeah. And everything like that. I think
it is. It's supposed to be, you come, we bring topics to the table that'll be of value. The main session typically covering, like I say, hot topics, whether it's, the government or changes to Ofsted or whatever it is, and how that would affect, I suppose, us regardless of your role. So typically they are operational roles that are in the room. So it's HR, it's finance, it's estates, data, governance, etc. And all coming together to kind of understand how that particular topic is going to affect their element of delivery, and how they can kind of adapt and survive from there.
Yeah, it only looks, it's like almost like the constructing excellence. Almost, you go, you find your place, but you do a lot of that, and that's all voluntary then.
Yes,
so you just go out there doing it off your own back to just make the school's place a better and share knowledge.
I think just give back. I think for me, when it was kind of posed to me, I think it was. I saw it as an opportunity to give back to the sector that's, I think, given me a lot.
Yeah.
So that's how I see it. I can't obviously speak for everybody else, but it is all done on a voluntary basis.
I do have a question then. Let's talk about the new Procurement Act, and that's been brought into play. It still confuses me a little bit, I ain't gonna lie. It's all very kind of top level, and it's all very much, I just rely on other people to explain to me. There's lots of elements going on in where you got to social value and everything like that, and it's all in this middle piece about how we can deliver best value to schools. But I just feel like there may be, I don't know, maybe a disconnect actually at the school level, looking up going, what are we getting? What actually are we getting? There can be 9 people in a chain for one job, whether it's an extension or something like that. So there's a lot sits on the estates teams then to really understand. Have you looked at the new Procurement Act? Are you fully understanding of what it means and actually what you should be looking out for as a school?
As a trust, we have just appointed an in-house procurement and contracts manager to kind of take this forward on Again, I think it's looking at that expertise and specialism in more detail rather than someone like myself trying to kind of do that alongside some of the other elements. So for us, that was a really important appointment. Am I fully au fait with what they're asking? No, probably not.
See, look, we can be honest on it. This is what I'm about. It's like, it's so much going on. Do you know?
No. And I think there's a reality in that, isn't there? Till it starts to unfold as it's come into effect, and as you start to kind of procure under those new regulations, I think everybody will adapt and kind of come through that. But yes, we've done an awful lot of procurement in the last kind of 3 years. So from an estates perspective, it's something that is constant for us.
Yeah, I think it's the social value part, which is it's been built for a reason, hasn't it? And it's this element of each part must be giving back something at some part, that you have to be giving back in some capacity. So, from a building surveying point of view, just put you right on the spot as well.
I'm not prepared.
What does that look like? But are you as surveyors challenging the supply chain to achieve their social value elements and help schools then understand what they're getting? Will you play a part in that?
I think we have to. Yeah, we have to be accountable in that process. I think what the changes or adaptations will be is like it's not all just about bottom price, which has been, and even for us as surveyors, it's still always been hard to argue the case that the cheapest isn't always the best scenario. And I think a lot of pressure has been put on schools to follow that route, though, really. And I don't think you're always going to turn around and go, oh, well, we're going to go with them because they're the cheapest.
I think there's a couple of different elements to that. I think obviously school budgets, we could do a whole session just talking about finance and budgets, I think, but it is always a driving factor. Finances in education is a challenge, but I think it doesn't necessarily, when you're talking about procurement and value for money, it comes from quality weighting as well. And if I'm going to get X because it's the cheapest, but it's going to cost me more work and be less efficient and not actually deliver on what I need, is it any use at all, and is it bringing value for money? And I think that's where the specification and the output has to be right from the beginning. You have to truly know what you're asking for to be able to get back what you need at the best price and deliver the social value. And I think there's a lot of elements, certainly for small and medium-sized enterprises, that don't fully understand what it means for them from a supply chain perspective, to understand how or what good social value might look like to an education establishment or otherwise in the public sector. I think if that's not something you've been asked to do before, or somebody sat down with you and explained, these are the things that are really valuable to me or us as an organisation, how they're not going to know. But I think it's very similar from a sustainability perspective. We're asking now, certainly as part of our procurement, we've included sustainability and social value for the last 3 years as part of all of our procurement exercises. And some small and medium-sized enterprises have said, I think it's more than I've ever been asked before. I don't understand. And it's been a little bit of a challenge for them to kind of understand that. And I think we have got better at explaining it and helping them to understand. And for us, that comes in lots of different guises. I think social value can be, for me, it's how can I help the pupils and the staff get a better experience from this contract, and how can I give back to the staff in ways that I couldn't give back to the staff. So from a construction perspective, and I go to our site teams, how can I give them training that I wouldn't be able to fund? Or how can I give them an experience to understand an element of their work that they wouldn't necessarily before? I think those are the elements that I find really valuable.
Yes.
That engagement, I think, is going to be a big one, because a lot of times when we've done procurement routes or tendering or anything, or frameworks, it's sort of like, oh, what have you done before? What? Give us some examples of what you've done.
Yeah, I've done that.
And a lot of the time, especially in the SME sort of world, they might not have that sort of case study or where you can apply it. But I suppose if they ask the question differently, like how are you going to?
Yes.
Then you've got to think about it, and you can maybe that gives you a bit of a realm to say, well, actually, we'd like to do it like this.
Yeah.
And it just gives you that, and you might just have the non-textbook answer of, oh well, we're going to do an apprenticeship because we're a massive multidisciplinary practice where we can have an apprenticeship doing this and things like that. So I think, and I think that's what when we spoke about it before about the procurement, it's trying to give opportunity to everybody, regionally, size based and things like that. And I think as long as the trusts engage with that and not just sort of go back to the old traditional, oh, well, prove what you've done previously, that shows that you can do it. Well, no one, because we're sort of drawing the line now to sort of take it forward. And I'm hoping that's been received of us in how I'm trying to explain that. But it'd be quite nice. It's we can be creative in how we look at things. And like I say, it might not suit everybody, but at least we're not just been bashed down on price.
100%. 100%.
Experience.
I think part of that, though, when you put out a procurement activity and you're expecting a supplier to submit a tender, and perhaps you're asking for social value elements that you've never asked before, they've never come across it. And I think that's where perhaps the barriers come in, because they're seeing it written and don't fully understand what that means or how they even answer that question. And I think that's where, as organisations, and particularly in the sector, public sector as well as education, I think we have a duty to help those people in our local supply chain to kind of understand that. A one-on-one conversation sat here like this to explain these are the kinds of things, in advance of any procurement, and everybody, fair and transparent as it should be, but helping suppliers generally to understand this. If you're asked to do this is what it means, and how can we give back to that local supply chain that have been very good to us over the years. I think some of our best examples come from some of the catering contracts that we did a couple of years ago, and giving our staff and pupils both fantastic experiences in a commercial setting to kind of go and visit and experience things that they've never had before, and on a regular and an annual basis, and whether it's butchery courses or whatever you're doing for the staff, and those types of things. Just an experience that somebody who's worked in school catering for a long time, they would have never had anything like that before.
I think it's always been like that. Sorry, to cut in. I think with contracts, most of the time, if you'd sat down with do you know, like when I was at Langley, the amount of social value we had within roofs was ridiculous, but no one asked about it. And we could have put talks into schools, but it's almost this disconnect, because it was like we didn't know whether you wanted that and you didn't know what you wanted.
That's the thing, if they don't know.
The roof went on, £500,000 roof, we all walked away, shook hands, and it was almost like there has to be more here. Like from a £500,000 refurb on a school, you can get new trees, you put in your biodiversity, you can get talks into schools, you can do days out, you can do work, and I think you've got to have a wise team to actually go, right, we love everything you've done, what can we get back from this? And actually, if schools are funded like they are and they're not going to get more in through pupils, they can just go create this whole new system through social value.
They've realised that, haven't they? That's what the whole changes are.
Definitely.
It's given back to the public sector where we can't necessarily give to ourselves. I think it's really going to be very valuable.
Definitely.
Thanks for that. Put me on the spot. Cheers for that one.
What about you? I know. He's right in the middle of it though, and I'm looking forward to seeing though how consultants do hold themselves in this position, because I think they've got a massive responsibility to not just be
But across
the
board
facilitator
as well. Yeah.
between them and them.
Yeah.
But almost be. I'll be honest. I think the consultants that step up and go, I'll get you that, and that. For that, that's the key.
Yeah.
I don't need to teach you how to do your job, but
I'm taking
I'm
notes.
sure
don't
he's
worry, I'm
gonna
taking
take it,
notes.
yeah.
I just think it's a real power play, and it builds trust. And actually, I just think
It's the age old saying that I can't sit there and go, oh well, I do this already, but generally you sort of do. I think if you're a person that you do care about it, and it's there. Like I say, I try to maximise what the school can be involved in and gain from those processes, because I just think it's just doing the bare minimum. It's not really doing a duty of care to anybody.
no,
in
just
reality.
being that facilitator between the two, and that's why most of them do get dragged down to price, because if they're just a facilitator, then they're just a.
I'll put in what I get out. That's the sort of
Exactly.
view of it, and if it's not.
What's the long-term plan then for Advanced Learning Partnership? What's the big goal? You don't have to. I'm not really putting you on the spot here, but is there a big vision for what the trust wants to do?
I think just continue to provide, all through education, inclusive education for within your community. And I think, our CEO and our organisational vision is that no child should have to leave their community to get high quality education. And I think as long as there are schools out there that would like to continue to join us, I think that will continue to grow.
It's keeping the mission going.
So,
Lovely.
yeah.
Kim, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for
so
having
much.
me.
No, thank you for coming.